Hello, it's John. I'm going to just give, I don't know, a fairly quick, for me, I guess, review of Netflix's Witcher series. Part of me was like, I should really mess with people and do this in the tub, but I think that might actually be against like the Geneva Convention or something. Not need to see that. But I went to the gym and this is what you get. Well, it's still kind of daylight out. I'm catching the light. Anyway, so first heard about The Witcher at all because of the video games, and at that point in time, only the third one. I'm not really a game guy. I'm not really a video game guy. Like I grew up with some stuff. I have my ex and my old roommates. Not now. I just got the animals don't play video games. All big video game people, other friends and stuff like that, and so and there's a couple people on YouTube. I like them. So sometimes I'll just have their stuff like on in the background if I'm like cooking or be down really low, just a little bit of sort of like, background noise if I'm reading or writing or painting or something. And a couple of those people, um, Sips and Hannah from Yogscast, were playing Witcher 3. So that's how I knew about it from there. And it seemed like the story was interesting, but it's sort of like it's video game thing. I don't really care. Come to find out that no, it's based on this series of books by this Polish guy. I'm like, okay, cool. Books are cool. I like books. Books are good. Um, so then that's just kind of what I knew about it for a couple of years until the thing about the show really started amping up. I got a friend of mine, Cesar Cuevas, really into it. I think he had read the stuff before, played the video games, really dug it, and he was talking to me about it. And he was like, "Dude, you're gonna dig it." So this past summer, we ended up kind of sharing Last Wish, which is this sort of like setup book of short stories that basically this whole first season was based on, especially Geralt's parts. Is based on a lot of these short stories that's setting up the rest of the series. So I read that book and then the first three of the series. And that kind of is a little bit getting into some of the things, especially on like series end, that they get with that. So I'm going into this like I do a lot of other things as Captain Book Snob. As Captain Book Snob, I liked the show. It was fun. It was good. It had a lot of the stuff. It was pretty close to the stories I felt, especially when you consider that there are some things you have to adapt in order to make this a television show. I was reading something from the showrunner. They said it was like, people were giving us crap because, in the stories, Geralt's way more verbal. But the way, Henry Cavill was acting it, who also got like the, pretty hardcore seal of approval from Andrzej Sapkowski, the guy who wrote the books and created the whole thing. And apparently the video games are sequels to the books. Like it's not the video games don't remake the books. There's the books and the books kind of end and then the video games take off from there. At least that's my understanding. So that guy basically said, all right, you know how Viggo Mortensen, however you want to say it, really became Aragorn. Like that's kind of who you see for Lord of the Rings. That's Henry Cavill for The Witcher. Henry Cavill also apparently a big nerd, which okay, cool. Um, so because he was able to communicate a lot just with his facial gestures and even with the infamous sort of or fuck, that like he was able to do so much without having to have these big sort of soliloquies or info dumps. They just went with that. Like, hey, cool, we got this. This is what we're going to go with. It stays in character because there is a certain stoicism to Geralt, even if he is being more loquacious. Um, that whole thing, where he doesn't really want to get involved, doesn't want to be kind of around people or dealing with that. And, you're able to kind of get these different moments with Geralt of that. I'm not going to get into, really the backstory of well, I guess a little bit, witchers being mutants made by sort of magic to fight these monsters. Um, and there's like a lot of like shitty racism in it. It's like, oh, you're a witch because you're this mutant. We're gonna basically treat you like shit. It's almost like this. It almost sort of. It's almost like in the original Star Trek show, which I love and I grew up with and everything, and it had a lot of fine things it did society wise, but it did sort of go, okay, Kirk and McCoy are here and here's Spock, and they're like, you're a Vulcan and you're stupid because you don't have emotion and you're not human. We're gonna make fun of you. And Spock's like, yeah. So then shit hits the fan, and they're like, dude, Spock, use your Vulcan cool stuff to get us out of it, which he does, and they're like, you're a stupid Vulcan. We're gonna make fun of you. There's almost sort of like that. It's like everyone's like, spitting on him, like, fuck you, mutant, and everything, get out of our, town and everything. Oh, but go kill this. And then, but we're going to bitch about paying you for it, even though we know going ahead of time that we should be paying you for this. So that's the sort of thing. And then there's this whole thing with mages. And then, like, the one woman, Yennefer, who's, kind of a badass mage herself. Um, a real sort of, independent streak, for lack of a better thing, kind of had like a really kind of shitty background and then turned the tables and like, I'm never going to kind of be in those situations again. And then, the other main girl, Siri, who is a, child, basically, who's got this really hardcore destiny on it. And I'm not going to do super spoilers for stuff that wasn't in the show, but the way they did it is they mixed in like the short stories to build up to what was going on, but then brought in some of the stuff from the actual book series, because otherwise you wouldn't see Siri for at least the first season. And then she comes in and becomes basically the whole point of everything. But it wasn't in the first season, so it's like, what the hell? So the showrunner was saying we had to kind of bring her in still and make that part of it. Like I said, I do have another video. Like I said, I liked the fact that the show didn't treat you like an idiot having to go, oh, now we're, because Geralt's and Yennefer's were like kind of way back when, leading you up to kind of now. And Ciri's story is in now. So it kind of had this, you see the timeline here. The other part of it is going this way, and then the one part of it starts here, and then they catch up. Excuse me. So, but I like that they gave you context clues in terms of the actions of the things going on in the world. I like that they used dialogue, and they used dialogue as in actual dialogue instead of someone just, okay, I'm talking to this character, but I'm basically talking to the audience, so I'm just going to info dump and vomit a bunch of crap on you so everyone can just be kept up. No, they did it in a really interesting way, in a smooth way. Um, and I like that they did that the way they did it. And I like that they didn't have to spoon feed you the then versus now, stuff on the screen or any of that other stuff. I liked that. I felt it was, again, I got a whole other thing on this. I'm not going to get into that because I already said it. Um, but I thought the writing was interesting. The acting was really good. Um, it was believable. The people were consistent and had some change and showed change smoothly as opposed to just, light bulb going off and all of a sudden they're a different person. They showed change smoothly and kind of how people were kind of fighting stuff a little bit with it. The guy that got to play Yasker, who in the translation of the books is named Dandelion. Well, I know people who can't stand him. I liked him in the books. I don't know, he just didn't. His acting wasn't bad. He just wasn't Dandelion to me. That's me. He wasn't bad, with that. He wasn't Dandelion to me. A couple other people didn't look like the way I thought, but I thought they did a good job with it. They brought in, this other sorceress, Triss Marigold, who's kind of important to a lot of things too. And, there's little interpersonal, kind of trysts and things like with that. And I liked her as a character too. And they usually talk about this battle of Sodden Hill where the mages were doing all this stuff and got fucked up. They actually showed it, which I wasn't expecting. I thought that they were just going to kind of, they alluded to it in the books. They kind of did bits of the scenes of it, but they actually showed it in the show, which I actually thought was kind of neat. So, where was I? I was petting Shin, and I forgot where I was. Oh yeah, Sodden Hill and the thing, and they did a good job. I mean, the it's not going to, I don't think it's going to be anything that rewrites television or anything like that. It's it's not going to be anything that is, well, so far, it's not going to be, hey, this is, yeah, it's not going to rewrite history or entertainment or anything like that. I mean, it was a solid show straight through. Again, the acting, the writing, the 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 world building, the building of the story and building up the arc, and then having it kind of pay off, having people meet at the end. Truths were outed, and people tried to explain things in like a genuine kind of way, as opposed to that sort of like teeny bopper CW thing of, I can tell you this, and the last 3 years of all these other problems will be cleared up, but I'm about to. No, I'm not going to. And then you're going to have a problem with saying this, but oh, and then we're getting in a fight, and then I'm going to have to say stuff to make things worse. I mean, there were a couple times where Geralt did say stuff to kind of piss someone off and make it worse, but he was genuinely sort of upset about other things at the time. Not the right thing to do, not excusing it, but you can understand that more of being an impulse of already being angry and upset more than I'm just going to do something counterintuitive. So, yeah, I just think, yeah, just solid show. Um, Trying to think, it's not a, I didn't, I enjoyed the books. The books were fun. Again, I've only read like 4 out of like the 8 or whatever there is, or 7 or something like that. I think there's like 7 regular books in the series and Last Wish in the beginning, something along those lines. But it's setting up from the beginning. It's not going from the games. It's going a little bit more from the books. So I'm cool with that. I thought it stayed pretty close to it, but it also had a few little fan service things from the games as well. A couple little things with that, including musically, um, or at least some things that sounded similar to what I have heard, in the brief shots of gameplay that I've watched or at least had on, and could recognize, some of the music stuff. So there were a couple nods to the games and everything along those lines. And then, yeah, like the whole sort of internet joke of, the, Game of Thrones fandom can like run to this now and everything like that. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you like Game of Thrones and everything like that, this is still probably something you're going to like, because it does have a little bit of the political stuff with it too. Because you have, the sort of, you know, like almost sort of evil empire is creeping up, and first no one took him seriously. Now people are taking him seriously, and they seem to be pretty brutal, and they're like this unstoppable force, and all that other stuff, and people are freaked out by them. But then you have like the mages and their sort of political intrigue, and then the one mage who's really kind of a son of a bitch, just the way he's treats people and does all this back sort of things, and gets sort of, wants Geralt to do all this other stuff, and he doesn't, but then he kind of does, and then, makes him the bad guy for doing what he wanted to do anyway. Because it doesn't want it to come back to him as, oh, I'm not the bad guy. Geralt's the bad guy. Look, he did this. He's the butcher. He did this. Oh. And Geralt's thing, a lot of it is just like, I don't want to get involved. He even talks about it. I mean, if there's a choice between lesser of two evils, I'm not going to make the choice, because both the evils evil. There's no lesser evil with this anyway. And then someone else actually makes the line, says the line. It was, there's the simplicity to killing monsters, and it's going to grow. It's like, listen, I didn't ask to be a witcher. I got this forced upon me. This was a fucked up life. There was a fucked up childhood. I got like abandoned, and then all this stuff and this training and the mutations and stuff to do this, become this, were fucked up. But I didn't really give a choice. So now I'm gonna just kind of do what I do. Like, I'm a witcher, so I'm gonna kill monsters, and you're gonna pay me. He kind of just keeping in that simple thing. I'm not going to get involved, but he's, even though everyone makes the comment of, I heard oh, hi, buddy. I heard, the mutations that make you a witcher make it so you don't have any feelings. And he doesn't disabuse people of that, but you can tell there's a lot of things where he does get involved. He does have feelings for people. He does do all this other stuff. It might be at a, maybe not at a certain depth, maybe that some other people might, but it's still there, and he's still trying to, there's still that, what would be traditionally considered to be like a good person with stuff. So yeah, I thought Henry Cavill did a great job. Yeah, he did a lot with a little. He did a lot with just looks, with his body language, again, with either sort of grunting or dropping F-bombs half the time, and every time it would just be like, fuck, it was funny. It was just sort of like you could, in this fantasy sort of environment, you could really put yourself in his sort of shoes and have a lot of empathy for him, because it was, especially he's just sitting there just going, fuck, he doesn't want to do this, but kind of gets caught with it, gets caught in, this certain realm of destiny and stuff like that he didn't want to have a part of. He was just like, I don't want this, whatever, just do the same thing. This law of surprise, fine, whatever. It's like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, no, it's fine. It's never going to be a thing. Bam, girl's pregnant. It's going to be this child that now his destiny's entwined with. And he was trying to not do that. He was trying to just be like, dude, whatever, we did the thing. You're alive. We're all great. Peace. I'm out. He's like, no, we got to pay. He's like, no, you really don't. He's like, and then it happens, and then he knows like his life is going to be entwined with this, and he's like, fuck. He tries to stop someone from murdering someone. Be like, listen, you had this breakthrough, or thought you did. Just go, just go. You can let this go. And like, I'm just trying to stop her from making a mistake, and then there's half a dozen people he's got to go kill. He's like, God, fuck. You can feel that. You can feel that frustration. You can feel that. Obviously not in the same situations, because this isn't a fantasy world and no one's here some sort of warrior mutant or anything like that, going in cutting dudes down with swords and everything. But you know, parallel sort of personal experiences with that. You can just tell that it's like, what's going through their head. And then he said, "Fuck!" It's like, yes, that's exactly what someone would do. There's not like a clever sort of speech. There's not some sort of line of, superhero line or anything. It's just, fuck. Yeah, okay, yeah, that brings you in. And especially with fantasy, sometimes it's being able to engage with it on that personal level is a little hard, because you're dealing with all this other stuff, and everyone wants to Mary Sue things and make it this whole big, like, crazy things. That's one of the cool things about um, Tolkien stuff and everything too. At the very least, the hobbits you can really, really bond with. You can really, really understand and have a lot of empathy for, because you can really kind of feel what they're going through with it. Even with Aragorn and things like that too. And then, you see Legolas and Gimli, at odds, but then they become friends, and that you maybe can understand that as well. So even with this fantasy world of stuff we're never going to have to deal with, hopefully, you can get yourself in there. And so I agree with the showrunner. I think Henry Cavill did a really good job of doing a lot with a little. And I think that's a really was a really important part of it. Because even reading the books, you do kind of get a more, stoic, standoffish kind of view of Geralt. And now they're able to show it in a way, because they have someone of enough caliber to be able to pull that off without, again, having to just dump a shitload of dialogue that is basically superfluous if you have someone who can do those things without it. That there's a lot of things with, screenwriting or playwriting or things like that. That's different from writing a novel is you want to, if you can say three sentences in one, don't use 10 words when three will do. Because, especially, screenwriting and script writing and everything like that, yeah, you don't use 10 words when you can use three. You write a novel, if you can use 10 words, you're probably going to use 15 to 18. We might not have him be paid by the word for magazines anymore, like Nicholas Nickleby or anything like that with Dickens. But and I as I write with some consistency. My novel's never been published yet, but I have enough practice with it where it's like, yeah, you kind of get in this rhythm and it just kind of pours out, and you edit it and cut off whole pieces and throw them out or put them somewhere else or anything like that. But you do have more sort of bleh when you're writing a novel, sometimes even a short story, than you do if you're trying to write a script because there's a lot more sort of at stake with writing a script. You got to take care of, your runtime. You got to take care of budget. You have to make sure that whomever you get to be that person can handle what it is that's on there. So I understand where they went with that. So I was cool with the portrayal because, he said enough. He said some clever things. He said some kind of important things, and then he was like, and you could really feel that with it. So I thought it was a really good show. I enjoyed it. I will, I'll binge it more than once probably till and before the next season comes out, which is like a year or year and a half or something like that. So yeah, I'll watch it again with that. I watched it straight through and then I kind of skipped through again afterwards and just sort of watched the main sort of Geralt parts and everything like that. The side stuff, like the Yennefer story, was interesting, and you really kind of get a feel for her sort of motivation with that. And the Siri parts were good, and it was, there was. It's almost like the Geralt parts were, yeah. I mean, it's called The Witcher, but Siri is really the sort of main driving thing of the larger series. So the Geralt parts were more serialized with the through line of eventually Yennefer and his relationship with her and how kind of ups and downs with that, and then his being tied in with Ciri and her destiny. So that was kind of like the underlying thing. But each episode with it, it had a more sort of serialized kind of feel with it. And then the other ones were almost playing more of a long game. So you had that idea of you get the satisfaction of some sort of catharsis or resolve per episode, but then you also get kind of drawn into the larger story uh, throughout as well. So yeah, all in all, good show. I'll watch it a few more times, probably till next season comes out. I would imagine that I'll probably, knowing me, finish the books before that time as well. I mean, the translations I got were pretty good, so I was able to get through them with a decent amount of speed. I mean, I'm a little dyslexic, and so my speed in reading isn't what I'm. Other people I know can just be like pop, 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 pop. I'm like, but so I mean, if another year, year and a half, I can pop out 3, 4 books way before that, even with all the other crap I want to read. But I do highly recommend the books. I really can't make any comments really on the games. I've seen some gameplay of 3 and it seems pretty cool. Probably not something I'm going to play. Um, but even if I had anything with which to play it on, which I don't really. Maybe this computer, but I'm not really going to play anything on that. But it's going more for the books, so go for the books too. Good fun. So yeah, Witcher on Netflix. Watch it. It's good for you. Like, subscribe, all the goody stuff. Thank you for watching.